We're going to hear from the founder of Black Wall Street, Miss Mandy Bowman. Receive her, y'all. Make her feel welcome. Come on, y'all.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
First and foremost, I want to thank you all for inviting me to come here. I've only been here for family. So I want to thank you all for the warm welcoming. For those who aren't familiar with officialblackwallstreet.com, it's a direct on businesses. We have over 3,000 listed all across the country for people to find and support Black businesses in their area. So I have to commend Maranatha Baptist Church for your dedication to supporting Black businesses and to really being in our community and making a difference. So I started Official Black Wall Street about 2 years ago. And during this time, I had learned about the original Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with this neighborhood, I suggest that you read up about it because it's definitely inspirational. Now, this to this day was the most prosperous Black neighborhood in our history. During this time in Tulsa, Oklahoma, this was in the early 1900s, but there was the Jim Crow laws. And so they had no choice but to create their own Black businesses. They basically took lemons and made lemonade from it. And it became very, very prosperous. So in this community, they had everything from Black-owned pharmacies to Black-owned movie theaters, anything you can think of. And it surely became the most prosperous Black community in our history. So one thing that stuck out to me was the fact that this community reminded me so much of my own. I grew up in Bed-Stuy. It's one person. And the Bed-Stuy that I grew up in is very, very different from the Bed-Stuy that's there now. It's not as brown as it used to be. And one thing that stuck out to me was the fact that we had, although it wasn't all Black-owned businesses, we had a lot of staple Black-owned businesses in our neighborhood. And a lot of those businesses had to close down and move out because of gentrification. And so for me, that really hit me. And it made me think that even though, we live in these neighborhoods and we think we own them, we don't have ownership of it.
Come on now.
Not when we're so easily removed from it.
That's right.
So from that point forward, I said, you know what, I'm going to go out and support as many of these businesses as possible to prevent this from happening. And that's how Official Black Wall Street started. There are a couple of stats that I found after I did a deep dive into Black-owned businesses that were really, really startling. Now, for one, in the Black community, our dollar only circulates for 6 hours. Now, just so you have something to compare it to, in the Jewish community, their dollar circulates for 20 days. In the Asian community, it circulates for a month. So I'm going to go back again. In the Black community, our dollar only circulates for 6 hours. Not even half a day before it leaves and enters someone else's neighborhood. So there we have more money pouring out of our neighborhood than we have coming in. There was another stat I found that said that although we have a buying power of $1.1 trillion, less than 1% of that goes to Black-owned businesses. So I'm going to flip it. So although we have a buying power of $1.1 trillion, 99% of that money is spent at other businesses. So we're not even investing in ourselves. So for me, that was a huge issue and something that I felt like we needed to do more of. We have to create more wealth in our communities, and we have to do that with supporting our Black businesses. Now, during that time, another thing that kind of influenced me to start Official Black Wall Street was the Michael Brown shooting. And during this time, I followed the case, all of the updates, every update you can think of. I followed it all throughout work. I followed it at home, and I was extremely numb. And I felt helpless, like there was nothing I could do. I went to the marches, I prayed, I tweeted, and I still felt like I wasn't making a movement, or I wasn't making, a huge impact. And that was when I decided that I was going to start speaking with my money.
Amen.
Because we've seen that work in the past. We've seen it with the Montgomery bus boycott. We've seen it with different sports boycotts where, if you impact someone's bottom line, that's when they start listening to you.
Amen.
So that's when I decided to go forth and start speaking with my money and putting my money into places where I know it will be invested back in me and in my people. So, what's great about Maranatha Baptist Church doing this is that all of the major movements, the most impactful, powerful movements in the Black community, from our fight for emancipation to the civil rights movement, all those movements began where?
Church.
In the church, right. So I want you to know that what you're doing is so powerful, and it may not seem as impactful now, but it will be written decades from now. So I commend you all for your efforts to support more Black businesses. There are a few things that I've heard people say when it comes to not supporting Black businesses that I want to address really quickly. One of those is the expense. So you'll find that with a lot of Black-owned businesses, some of their prices are a little bit higher than others. And that's because when you have a small business, you don't have the same contracts as other people or the same demands to mass produce your products. So even though Target, or Target, however you like to remix it, can knock down their prices, a new Black-owned business will not be able to do so. So it's a catch-22. Unless we support these businesses, they'll never get to the point where they can do the same. And we'll consistently have the cycle of not having wealth in our communities. Another thing, I had actually spoken to a brother and sister duo in Atlanta, and they have their own grocery store. Now, I was really excited about this because there are not many Black-owned grocery stores in this country. So I was really excited about this. They had been open for less than a year, and then they had to close down. And they were very open and honest about why they had to close. And they said it's because they just couldn't compete. There weren't a lot of people who were actively supporting their businesses. Because there was a ShopRite and the Stop Shop or Stop and Shop, people would go to those businesses instead of supporting their own. So they had to close down. There were another chain of grocery stores in the South. And one by one, those also continued to close down because they could not compete. So when you have these situations where Black business owners have to go up against, a Walmart or a Target, or you have situations where Black business owners aren't getting the loans that they need to start Black businesses, or even when they do, their interest rates are higher than any other racial group. It's even more important that we put our support behind these businesses. And the fact of the matter is, when it comes down to it, and when it comes down to things that we're passionate about, when we're marching in the streets and we're demanding justice for something, Target is not going to be there marching with us.
Right.
So it's important that we put our money, where our interests best lay. And I feel like that's what it will take for us to become a more powerful community, a more wealthy community, and have long-term generational wealth. But clearly we can't do it without everyone pitching in to support. So I challenge you all to, one, go to the Business Expo in the next couple of months, and also to look and find as many Black-owned businesses as you can to support and move forward with. Because if we don't support ourselves, I have no idea who else will.
Amen.
Thank you all.
Come on, y'all can give her a better hand than that.